So there's a very natural ceiling that a lot of brands hit. This is currently around 750K. In a pre-iOS 14 world, it was around 3 million. And this is the ceiling that you can hit if you have a decent product, good economics, you've gotten like all your supply lines and all that sort of stuff figured out, you have a 3PL, and you have a very basic marketing strategy or a single channel strategy that works really well. This is something that, when I started doing this in the pre-iOS 14 world, we'd run into a lot of brands who had scaled to about $2.5 to $3 million and then got stuck there. And they would have like the very basics of their emails set up, like the Klaviyo default flows. And then they would have basically just Facebook set up in a very rudimentary way, and they could get to about 2.5 to 3 million. These days, this is really around 750K. And same thing, you see brands with good product, they'll have good reviews, and you go into their Facebook and maybe they have like one DPA ad or one ad with a bunch of product shots, but nothing more sophisticated than that. Another thing you're seeing that's definitely becoming more common is people with social media followings, influencers, will start brands and they'll be able to scale those brands on the back of their network. And that's really the one channel that they have working and can scale at kind of the same place. So that's something that you see more often now than you would see 5 years ago. And you're really seeing that 750K is where people hit that ceiling where it requires a more sophisticated marketing strategy. It requires actually really understanding how to make Facebook, Google, and email perform at a high level to break past that and start getting up into those 7-figure years. Well, yeah, a huge one, right? Look at Facebook. 4 years ago, you go into brands and they had a decent product and a super rudimentary digital marketing strategy, 2.5 to 3 million. Now, that's more around 750K. So that has been a huge market shift as Apple has been, going after kind of Facebook and digital marketing in general. The scale that you can hit with basically no knowledge about how to actually do digital marketing has lowered. And the scale that you can hit with knowledge of how to do digital marketing has also lowered. Overall, Facebook still is the greatest advertising platform to have ever existed. And Facebook was 10 times better 4 years ago. So I think that's a huge one. Obviously, as privacy technologies become more standard or getting launched on more browsers, you're looking at the death of third-party cookies. Digital advertising has become more difficult overall. And e-commerce CPG is completely built on digital marketing, right? This is not Burger King. No one walks into your e-commerce store. You have to market it somehow. You have to get eyeballs there. And so as digital marketing has become more difficult, launching and scaling a D2C consumer brand has also become more difficult. The most common reason we see brands hit scaling plateaus is because they have hit the cap of what their current digital marketing strategy will do for them. Again, in e-commerce, the only way you're getting eyeballs is through digital marketing. It's either through owned media channels like email, you already own the customer relationship and you're bringing them back, or through paid acquisition, Google, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, all of those platforms. But one way or another, you are using a digital channel for them to come to your e-commerce store. And so when we see brands hit a plateau, they have maximized their current strategy on their current channels. And there's two ways to break through that plateau. One, add new channels. And two, improve your strategy on your existing channels. A lot of the brands that we see who have hit that first scaling plateau, maybe around 750K, $1 million a year, what they have done is they'll have like one Facebook campaign, maybe running DPA ads, or maybe they'll just have a couple product shots in a broad campaign. And they won't have a very sophisticated search strategy. They'll just have some keywords thrown in there. On the email side, they'll typically have just the Klaviyo basic setup. So they'll have only email, no SMS. They'll have a pop-up. They'll have a 1 or 2 email welcome series, a lot of times just using the standard Klaviyo templates. And then they'll have an abandoned checkout flow, but like no abandoned cart flow, no browse abandonment, no progressive discounting, no urgency language, no sophisticated templates, things like that. And so typically, if you see that and they're still making it work at that scale with those strategies, you're sitting on a mountain of gold. You put together the right digital marketing strategy, you get good statics as well as good UGC into Facebook, you get shopping going on Google, you rethink the search strategy to be able to capture longer tail keywords, and then you redo all the emails, get them on a more consistent blast cadence, fix all the flows. You can start to double a brand year over year pretty quickly from there. And that being said, like, we go into brands that are doing 20 million a year, but have an absolute dearth in like their email, for example. There are brands that have grown slowly, organically. They grew a bunch back in the day and then have plateaued, and they will have channels that are way under optimizing. And it's pretty amazing what you can do by fixing a channel with a brand that's already working. You know, we had one brand we went into that was doing 2 million a year and was doing no email. And we just set them on a consistent blast cadence and fixed all their flows. And they went from 2 million to 4 million in 30 days. So doubled the brand in 30 days because they had absolutely nothing going on the email side, and they had a good product, they had a good company. They were just basically missing a channel. And specifically when we see those types of situations where you have a brand who's hit a level of scale, but is completely missing one of those core channels, that's an opportunity for 50%, 100% growth in 30 to 60 days. Those are massive opportunities. So I think the biggest thing when people hit scaling plateaus is because they have hit the maximum of what them or their team can do within their current ecosystem. So a lot of times that means that the existing team has maximized what their competency allows them to do. They have, reached the top of the level of strategy, the sophistication that they're going to be able to add to the digital marketing ecosystem. And so most of the time what we see is when you've hit a plateau, you need to bring in someone who knows how to get to the next level, who knows the strategies that are required there, and has done it before. I mean, experience is one hell of a teacher. And especially in these things where you're talking about, year-long strategies and stuff like that, bringing in experts who have done it before can shorten your learning cycles by months, if not years, and put you on much more aggressive growth paths. So to anyone who's hitting a scaling ceiling and is plateauing and is trying to figure out how to get to the next level, the best way to get to the next level is to bring in someone who's done it a couple times and understands what you're missing in your strategies across your digital marketing channels, or what channels you should be in that you're not, to get you up to that next level. So to grow an e-commerce brand or any company, you do have to have a growth mindset, right? You have to be looking forward, and a big part of that is understanding what it takes to invest in growth. Growth does not walk in the front door. And when you hit these scaling plateaus, you can't just spend more money. You have to introduce new strategies. The thing that I have seen get in founders' ways is not wanting to invest. I'm sure that this is a broader thing, right? I'm sure you have tons of companies throughout the United States, throughout the world, where the founders want more revenue but aren't willing to pay more to get it. One of the best examples I've seen of this is a brand we were working with where they had a very clear email opportunity. We were doing all their paid act, and we saw that their email was way underperforming. And with all our models, it's low management fee, high upside alignment. We went to them and said, hey, we can double your brand next year if we take over email. Here's a bunch of models to prove it out. You're not going to pay us anything if we don't. We already have our paid engagement, so we already have, our management fees. So you're not going to pay us anything if we don't grow it. But if we do grow it, we're going to take a commission on that. A 10% commission, which, we verified, worked with all their margins and everything, still made them profitable at the end of the year. And we showed them that we would add $4 million in revenue to their bottom line. So it was going to be like a net win for them. And their comment to us was, we just don't want to pay that much. So they didn't want to invest to make their company grow. And we continued to work with them on the paid act side. We got some really good wins from Facebook, introducing UGC and stuff like that. But that brand never reached its potential. That brand could have been growing way faster, could have been way more successful, but they got in their own way. Their aversion to investment prevented them from reaping the rewards of that investment. It was always really disappointing for me because I saw it and I said, this is something that can be really big, but if people aren't willing to invest, they're not going to grow. An e-commerce store is not a brick and mortar store. No one walks into it. You cannot Set up your e-commerce store on the busiest block in your city and get free foot traffic. You need to have the right digital marketing infrastructure to grow an e-commerce brand. Facebook, Google, and email are the bread and butter. There is like a 2% of brands who have grown successfully into 7 figures plus off of things like affiliate and influencer. And there's tons of case studies you can read about those brands because they are super rare. 98, maybe 99% of e-commerce brands grow on email, Facebook, and Google. There are tried and true strategies that work on those. They do change definitely on a yearly basis, sometimes even faster. Facebook, for example, last year was the year of UGC. This year, UGC isn't working quite as well. You want more studio level production photography and videos. So you need more of a mix. But with contemporary and current strategies on those 3 channels, you can get up to 15 million. So the important part is understanding what those strategies are and implementing them and having those channels running. But those are your bread and butter, and that is the base level infrastructure to scale. And if anyone's interested in Facebook or email, we have previous videos that we've done on those channels specifically. So my favorite concept when it comes to scaling an e-commerce brand is the concept of free scaling. Free scaling is the break point where every dollar put into the marketing machine results in either break even or profit after all costs at the end of the year. A store-wide ROAS number or a marketing efficiency ratio or MER number is what you would look at to understand where that breakpoint is. And that's how you can grow brands profitably infinitely. And just to give an example of this, so like we work with a brand, they know that as long as they have an overall 3x store-wide ROAS, right? So if we spend $100,000 and they make $300,000, that's profitable for them. And so at that 3x ROAS, if we spend $110,000 and they make $330,000, they are going to net have more profit after all their costs are accounted for than at 100 and 300. And so at that 3x overall store-wide ROAS, we can grow infinitely because it takes care of all their costs. Now, when it ends up happening, you spend more money. As you spend more money, you get into less and less qualified audiences. Then your conversion rate goes down, your CPM goes up, things get more expensive, and you need to optimize. You need new creative, you need better technology, whatever it is, you need to optimize to bring that ROAS back up so you can scale further. But that's free scaling number is what every brand should aspire to get to because you have infinite profitable growth within those bounds. The other aspect of that brands need to consider is what their operating costs are. Getting over those fixed costs is one of the first things a brand needs to do. But once you're over those fixed costs and you understand your free scaling number, then your financial constraints, and you just need to manage to those.